Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next session. We have Michael Geoffrey Asia from the Data Labelers Association. I was just telling Michael beforehand, I'm a genuine huge fan of the work that you're doing with the Data Labelers Association. We had a session last year as well, and it really opened my eyes for the first time to hear directly about your work, and I'm very grateful, especially about the topic you're going to talk about today. Yeah, because we had a whole session about AI companions, and this piece was missing. We did a whole half day on AI companions, and we didn't ask ourselves how did they learn. So I really very grateful for you being here today. And so I'll hand over and let you tell us.
Thank you so much. My name is Michael. Once again, the author of the article, The Emotional Labor Behind AI Intimacy. But more than that, I'm a person who lived the experience, a former chat moderator and a data annotator also at the same time, who actually served across multiple global outsourcing platforms like Summer, Cloud Factory, Tailors, Appen, just to name a few. And in much of that work, I was tasked with, impersonating AI companions, performing, the emotional labor that required intense psychological presence while remaining entirely invisible. Also, at the same time, to the users who interacted with the systems that I was actually helping to train. I wrote this report personally, not just to document my own experience, but to also give, a voice to the thousands of workers like me, people whose labor is fragmented, undervalued, and, consistently portrayed as simple, even as it demands, the finely tuned emotional performance and these are really exposed as, to the content, which, in my opinion, require protections. And throughout this, I think I must say it was a learning experience for me. And to be very honest, I'm so much eager to, shed more light on the lived experiences that I went through. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So did you want to tell us more about what this experience was like? It's hard to imagine. So I read the report that you had prepared, or you prepared, and you had to represent multiple kind of personalities at once.
Sure. I think the whole conversation can be a bit deep, considering that what happens on those platforms has a lot of, encryption. But most importantly is at least we understand from one side of it, which happens to be the admin side of it, that this is what is really happening. And I think also when we talk about this work, we need to understand that I am a man, not a woman, for example, and I might only reason like a man, but now I've been put in a situation where like I have to, be a man, be a woman at the same time, because if I'm talking to a woman, I have to be a man. And if I'm talking to a man, I have to be a woman. Tomorrow I find myself talking to a gay. I'm not one. I respect them, but I don't know how they interact. The other time I'm talking to a lesbian. I am not one. I respect them, but I don't know how to respond to their needs. So, and at that time, that is when I have to juggle your mind completely. And to some extent, it's so draining. And you're living the fragments of, what as a person you feel is ethically wrong. And day in, day out, you are there trying to lie to people that you love them. Sometimes I would sit back and I'm like, I feel so much bitter about the fact that we are training, systems to respond with empathy, but no one is training the world, to love people like us. And that is why we have remained as hermits in our spaces. We don't leave the house. We struggle with insomnia just because, we were put in a situation where like we really had to juggle along and lose our own self. So I'm in a space where if you told me you love me today, I don't think I even have a word for you. I never trust the word love as a person. And also having been brought up from a Christian perspective and a Christian background, I'm like, love has to be so deep, because I go to church personally. I serve, and someone tells you the Bible says, "For God so loved the world." So how do you define this kind of love if you yourself you're struggling to understand the word love, and then you're supposed to be preaching to someone and telling them, "For God so loved the world"? How do you bring the two together? Again, you're in a space where you have a family. How do you tell your partner you love them? Because even them telling you they love you, to some extent, you don't even trust them, because you're like, how? Is it the same thing I'm doing on the screens? Because love has never been real for me as a person. So defining the word love for me, to be honest, I don't have a clear definition of the word love.
Wow. And how many hours a day did you have to do this? I mean, it's pretty intense and low paid.
I think when I started working, I also had other, side hustles, and I had to do a balance. And that is why I ended up working for, at times, 18 hours a day. And that is why I'm really struggling with insomnia today. So at first I was working for summer, and besides summer, I also had another project that was basically annotating pornography. And at the same time, I was on this one now. So this one I had allocated 4 hours a day. The pornographic one was so demanding because it was 8 hours, and then the summer one was actually 8 hours also. That is why I couldn't allocate too much time for this. I had 4 hours only for this.
Wow, it's kind of unimaginable how difficult that must be. And I've spoken to other data labelers, and as you mentioned, I mean, the issue is your family's there. Often I've heard, data labelers are working uh, in the same room, basically with their family, and you have a real trouble reconciling where you are physically and what you're doing on the screen. Is that
I
right?
think we really have a big problem with this. There is a slave tool called the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement. I think when you sign this NDA, they tell you not even your partner is supposed to see what you're doing, not even your own partner. So if you're telling someone you love them, for example, and your partner sees you told someone you love them, she wouldn't even trust you going forward. So to
Mm.
some extent, that fractures your own relationship, your own family setup. And yet at the same time, you're not supposed to tell anyone. Secondly, you're going through this mental struggle of, trying to juggle around this. You're hiding it day in, day out, and you're supposed to be working. And yet at the same time, um, you have a life to live as a person, because you can't keep hiding, and yet you're supposed to be paying bills. And again, also considering that this goes against your own, beliefs, that you represent as a person, you realize that it becomes a bit difficult to also cope with the same circumstances. And so the bigger conversation also goes to mental health. You're not supposed to tell anyone what you're going through. How then do you get mental health? Because mental health has been so vital for any data labeler anywhere. And that has really prompted us to, have a sit down and have an intensive conversation around how then do we get help. DLA is a very young organization, very young. We are only a year old, and we've really had a problem because we have prioritized some of our objectives. And DLA has 4 main objectives. One is DLA Connect. DLA Connect basically is connecting our members to potential employers. If we find someone who has, this work that needs to be done, we have a pool of qualified, members. We have DLA community, which we respect. We need team building. These guys never leave their houses. Some of us are victims of the same.
Mhm.
We are living like hermits in our own spaces. No one leaves the house. For me, since morning, I just left the house for like 10 minutes to just go to the shop and come back. I haven't left the house since yesterday. So you realize like these guys need a space, a safe space where they can like interact, because most of them know each other, virtually. They have never even met. And on 7th of last month, we had a program where we were like having all data labelers who are willing to be there for the event. We had more than 300 data labelers for that event, and we really gave them a space. I remember I was the one checking in guys to, the transport to the site, and there are people who've been talking for the last 4 years. They had never met. They met on that list when they were boarding that vehicle to go to, the site. And you're like, now, what happened? These people went to a place where they could now sit down and talk. I'm imagining you knowing someone virtually for 4 years and now you're meeting. At least you have so much to speak about. So DLA community is our second objective. Then we had a third objective called DLA Academy. We understand that this work really has a lot of, guys are actually, once you finish your work or rather you're laid off, your skills are not transferable. So you realize most guys end up in depression because, okay, how do I go to another company and tell them I've been labeling data and maybe it doesn't know anything to do with data? So you see now I do not have a skill that fits for that, specific role. So DLA Academy came in because we wanted to have guys reskill and upskill. For example, if someone's doing data annotation today, we are willing to help them move to data analysis. And that is why you go to our website. We are also trying to incorporate courses also that will help them, reskill and upskill. Then we have DLA Health. Now that one deals with mental health. Now I'll base my conversation around mental health because it's very vital. Considering that most of these guys are suffering depression today, most of them are suffering because of the graphic content they're interacting with. So DLA Health had a challenge of its own because we can't function today because we've not gotten anyone who can actually support us, including the government itself. No one has been there to help us. But we are like, I know what some of us are going through. I have been through hell as a person. And maybe I can take it back for you to understand the concept of mental health and why it's so important and so urgent for us. Before I got employed by Summer, I lost my job in 2018. That is around September. And the same day I lost my job, that is when my wife was giving birth to my third born. Then some few months later, my own child was pushed into a pot of boiling beans in school. And she burnt the entire buttock area. And we had to stay in hospital for some time. Then some 6 months later, the boy developed a stomach problem. And at that time, I'm still jobless. Then now the boy is admitted again in a national hospital here in Nairobi. And then 10 days later, the tests are out and the boy tests positive for cancer of the lymphatic system. Then now treatment starts on a 5-year-old. I am at the hospital with the child myself. And is fending for my young family. I am in the hospital. I have to struggle with the child during the day, leave at night to at least find something to do because, my family is back at home and my wife cannot leave the house because she has a small kid. Now, I am struggling with all this. Then now summer comes in. But before summer comes in, I'm also going through my own struggle at the hospital. And at the hospital, I see kids die. You can imagine a 1-year-old dying out of cancer and you're like, God, help me. So in the process, I lost 7 kids in my own hand trying to rush them to the doctor. And you get to the doctor tells you wait, and the kid passes on in your own hands. And you're going through this, you're talking to no one, you have no one to tell all this. Then now Summer engages me. I'm still struggling because I used to go to Summer, then back to hospital to Summer. That is how I used to operate because my child was not yet discharged. I didn't have someone I could tell what I was going through. I used to sometimes get to work late. My team lead was like all over me. Ask me questions. Why are you coming late? Are you not interested in it? But I'm like, I can't talk to them because they will not understand. Some of these issues, most people don't understand. It's only you who understands, and maybe someone who's gone through the same. So throughout that period, I am like, I wish I could get someone to speak to, but no one would understand me, basically. Then now, Summer employs me. I spend a whole month going to Summer, back to hospital to Summer. That is how I used to go to work. Then after 1 month, my child is discharged, but he's still undergoing, the clinic. And I have to take him for therapy. I have to take him for the clinic and so on and so forth. So 6 months later, I have another job, a side hustle. I'm annotating pornography. Someone gives you a video of pornography and they tell you, please, I want to put tags on these pornographic videos. By tags, I mean if you view the video, then on every frame, you're like supposed to put 10 to 15 tags to increase the chances of it being found on the internet if someone is searching for it. So if it's doggy, you can write doggy, write some other tags, so that anyone who is searching for this can actually get this kind of pornography on the internet. Now, this is where I am. I am watching pornography 8 hours a day after my summer shift. I'm watching pornography for another 8 hours. Now, you can imagine the damage pornography is causing to me. And at the same time, after the pornographic shift, I'm actually working as a chat moderator again. Now, trying to juggle again around this, these profiles. Now, this is where I am as a person. Who then understands me? I have someone called, a mental wellness coach at work. But do they really understand what watching pornography for 8 hours means? No. So for me to go there again, I have reservations because I don't know what they will tell me. They'll advise me from a general perspective, but that is not what I need, because they need to advise me on how I am supposed to retain my own marriage, because I'm also losing my marriage. I can't function. My body responded to pornography until it now shut down. So I have no one else to tell all this. I have a young wife who requires me sexually. And I'm like, I do not really understand. Who then do I tell what I'm going through? Who then helps me? Now, you realize sometimes you go for therapy, and instead of them counseling you, it's you counseling them. Now you lose hope again. You're like, who then do I talk to? And that is where I am as a person, for example. And then here I am at DLA. I need to figure out how, the DLA health needs to work, how we can come up with mental health strategies to help people. But then who trusts you as a young organization again? Because no one has ever given you funds and you accounted for it fully. So receiving funding becomes an issue also for the same program. Then secondly, again, you have a problem. Who then is willing to help? Because we have had this conversation for close to 2 years now. We've not had someone who could actually come on board and tell us, please, let's have a sit down. We're willing. It doesn't matter. It's not about finances. It's not about funds to run this program. It's about availability of this help. And that is what we have been pleading for all along, because I know I'm one of the people who suffered. I do not know how many are suffering, but trust me, many people are suffering. Many people are so depressed at the moment. Yeah.
I actually was talking to Kauna Magvi, she was in Kenya before, and she's trying to help with mental health support for the data labelers, and she was talking about this, as well. I mean, you expressed it in a very this direct way that it's really, as you say, who can really understand you? Besides, even if you get past the NDA, which is something we need to appreciate, right? That you guys, even doing your job, are kind of at risk, right? Because you're breaking the NDA, and that's something very much to respect. And there's even a problem if, for example, you have someone who knows you have an expert, I don't know, in Nigeria, you need to be able to connect. And for data labeler, connection is internet, which costs, right? So anything that you do online that isn't your job is kind of against, against your work time, right? Because you have to pay. I don't know if this makes sense. I think this is also something people need to appreciate, that you almost need to have someone there in person, or you have someone who's going to donate actually internet cards or something like that.
I think the reason the conversation has been so wide, and like DLA really needs someone on the ground is because, number one, we have guys who are members who are still working for some of these BPOs, and they really care about their own privacy, because they might be targeted also on why they are actually going for such help from outside, and yet there is what the company has provided. And that is why we said we might not need to have all this conversation online. It's very important, fine, to have someone, undergo therapy online. But sometimes we love, having it physical, because at least someone is assured of their privacy, because you might not know who is listening on the other side. So it's a conversation that we are really trying to figure out by all means, to ensure that at least we have this functionality of DLA working. It's a bit expensive, and that is why most guys cannot afford it. Guys who are still working, because I understand most of the guys who are working are earning at least roughly $200 to $250 per month. Honestly, that can't service such kind of functionality. And so that is why we were like, as DLA, we are actually going to give it for free for anyone who walks in, be it a member or not, because mental health is so important to everyone, not just data labelers, to literally everyone. Yeah.
It is, and if you really think about and really appreciate the fact that basically AI is all this talk about expanding AI, and everyone's going to replace jobs, replacing relationships, blah blah blah. But it is actually being built on a whole generation's backs. And this has not only implications for you, but for anyone who uses it. You can't rely on the AI being good if the people that are training it aren't, their mental health isn't protected, they're working 18 hours a day for such small amounts. And this is, yeah, and this is such an important element. I did see your live stream of the event. I didn't realize that was the first one with 300. It was really nice to see. Um, yeah, and so what I know you've been getting more attention, right? Which is good. I feel like you're growing, but it is about money. It is about being trusted, and this is one thing we try to do in Shield. You know, it's like if we pull together, maybe we can get, get more done. But what can the average person? I apologize for this cat. What can the average person do to help you? I mean, will you say for how can we help data labelers?
I think, as I've said, and I'll repeat again, and at least to make it a bit understandable. One, it's not about the funds, because in most cases, people never trust you with funds when you're still a young organization. That one we respect. But if we have a group of people who are willing to offer the service, we are very much open to it because it's as urgent as it is. Because I personally got some little help. I Trust me, I haven't gotten the full help I needed, but there's an organization that stood with me as a caregiver to a cancer patient. I went for therapy as a caregiver there's an entity called Faraja Cancer Support Center here in Nairobi. I went there, and through that, at least I got some help, because being a caregiver, I also had access to, the therapists. So it was so easy for me to at least get some help. But what of someone who hasn't had such an opportunity? What are they going through? And I'm like, it's not about, us receiving funds for it. It's us getting the solution. Because, to be very honest, okay, I'm not here because I want to benefit financially. No, I'm here because I believe that ethical AI shouldn't be built, on exploited labor. And I want to be part of a solution to help evaluate, refine, and have all these people accountable for all that they're doing. Because we need a society that is clean. We need people that are mentally stable to be able to do what? To help all this. And we need to be in a space where we understand what mental health is. I think most people have a problem understanding what mental health is. And personally, when I started, going for therapy, at first I thought it was just normal. I couldn't even shed tears in some of the most disturbing moments, because I witnessed an accident where people, broke their legs, their hands, some of them died on the scene, but I couldn't even shed tears. So when I went for therapy the first time, I was asked, how do you behave when you see some of these things? And I was like, no, I have seen much of this. I think I've gotten used to it. That is what they call now trauma. That's why it hit me that is what they call trauma when you go for counseling. And I was like, then most people don't understand what mental health is, because I thought maybe I have witnessed this and I've gotten used to it, only to realize it was what they call trauma when you go for counseling. Yeah. So you need, first of all, to understand what mental health is, what trauma is, what depression is, all this. But before then, we still are losing so many people.
We are,
Yeah.
and actually, this actually could be said to so many actually populations with what we see online. Um, Unfortunately, we're out of time. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I do want to repeat what you said because that's really important. That what they need is not financial support, but in-kind support. You know, that obviously we all need financial support, but what you're saying is that maybe it's easier to give the in-kind support, and really this mental health is all of our AI is built on your backs. I mean, if we're worried about the young people who use the AI companions, anyone who's replacing, it's because someone like you had to do it for 8 hours a day, a time on top of other things. And I generally have the deepest respect for your work, and I would look to help any way I can. So this is good to know about the in-kind support because I feel like this is something we could reach out to there's other mental health professionals that have kind of teamed up AI for responsible AI. So really, thank you for from the deepest of my heart for being here, for the work you do, and for helping us understand it.
Thank you.